The Kansas City Chiefs go to California and they do what it is that the Kansas City Chiefs do. They come away with a win. We have a full game review full of headlines, big ideas, talking points, offensive game ball, defensive game ball, and a Mahomes monologue. We will start with the headlines, and we have to start here. Gold Slayer, Mecole rumbles. Mecole Hardman is money when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers, but more importantly than that, Mecole Hardman is becoming a little bit more involved in the offense in general, and we will talk about him a little bit later as well. The number 2 headline here, the Niner becomes the hunted. Kareem with 2 touchdowns. The Niner becomes the hunted like the hunter becomes the hunted. And, well, I guess if you have to explain it, then it's not a very good headline, is it? And the third headline here, undefeated, indefatigable. The big ideas coming out of this game are this. With Jalen Watson out for an extended period of time, that has been confirmed today, and Juju having a hamstring, the Chiefs may just have to play such strange football, 3 tight end sets, safeties at cornerback, that their deficiencies become strength through novelty. What I mean by this is that by having to put 3 tight ends on the field so much, as the Kansas City Chiefs may be forced to do until they are able to acquire a wide receiver, or if nobody just wants to do a deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, they have to try to win through other alternative means, then teams are going to realize very quickly they don't really have the personnel to go up against 3 and maybe 4 tight end sets. They don't have the personnel to cover a jumbo package with a power running back like Kareem Hunt, but also a little guy like Xavier Worthy lined up very close to the sideline, who's the fastest person in the history of the NFL Combine. It might be that on defense, the Kansas City Chiefs forced to roll out there with so many safeties, but maybe not all that many cornerbacks, true cornerbacks. Maybe you've got 3-4 safeties on the field. Well, probably you're going to be playing a zone defense, right? Maybe teams realize they don't know what to throw against that type of defense. I'm not saying that it is cunningly genius 4D chess by Brett Veach and the coaching staff. What I mean is these injuries have hit in such interesting places, if we can talk about this in that way, that the Chiefs may be forced into playing alternative types of football. And Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes might be able to make that work. Remember, every once in a while, the Patriots, and I hate to keep comparing the Chiefs to the Patriots, but the Patriots would get so devastated with injuries because the Patriots played very long seasons that they would have wide receivers out there lined up a corner. Things like that. And it just sometimes worked. No one knew how to attack it. The number 2 thing to talk about here, Travis Kelce is wide receiver 1, and Noah Gray is wide receiver 2 right now. Noah Gray I eat crow on Noah Gray. I spent 3 years talking about how Noah Gray is just a guy, and this season he has had above just a guy numbers. So it is interesting to see this game where, like I talked about in that first point there, the Chiefs are forced into different types of formations and still something emerges. The number 3 talking point here, Mecole Hardman had 55 offensive yards and 55 punt return yards. Mecole Hardman was invaluable? What a wild turn of events. What a strange season in which we find ourselves. Mecole Hardman was an absolute rock for the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers. the last big idea here. I say this part in jest. Guys, I think I say it part not in jest. If the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl this year, everybody else in the NFL should just retire. Because you're not doing it again. You're not taking it back. Yesterday, the Kansas City Chiefs offense could not get anything really going. That's how it felt. The Kansas City Chiefs could not throw the ball. Patrick Mahomes, I think, finished the game with 154 yards passing and 2 interceptions, something like that. That's not great. Leading rusher Kareem Hunt, I believe, had 74, 78 yards. Decent day. It's not a 100-yard day. The Kansas City Chiefs still ended up putting up 28 points. The Kansas City Chiefs, to end the third quarter, if I'm remembering this correctly, had a 6-ish minute drive. The Kansas City Chiefs, in the middle of the fourth quarter, had a 6-ish minute drive. Why? Why did they do that? Well, because that's what it took to win the game at that point. We've talked on this channel since look, if you want to go all the way back, we've been talking about this since the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core was constructed. We talked about everybody on the wide receiver core was injury prone, basically with the exception of Rashee Rice, and guess what? That's the guy that went down second. But we also talked about how we thought that was going to be a suspension this season, but we had conjectured that this season a power running game might be necessary in order to keep the Chiefs' offense moving, because it was likely that there would be injuries at the wide receiver spot. Didn't know it was going to be as extensive as it is. So we've talked about the offense needing the ability to sustain long drives and kill clock. We talked about it as a necessity for this offense, even if they were full powered. Why? Well, because you score 35 points in an NFL game, what you want to start doing then would be draining the clock. Just kill the game so you don't accrue injuries. So regardless of what actually ended up happening at the wide receiver spot, it was likely these Kansas City Chiefs were going to need the ability to kill the clock. Something they have not been able to do in previous seasons. But this season, when it seems that's all they have, they're getting it done. Now moving on to the talking points from this game. George Karlaftis with a quiet masterclass. George Karlaftis had 3 tackles and a sack. That's a good game. It's a decent thing. Had a sack, got on the board there finally. 3 tackles, that's a decent number for a defensive end during the course of a game. But he forced the Justin Reid interception. Go back and watch that play. He was right in Purdy's face. He forced the Jaden Hicks interception. Go back and watch that play. I believe he hit Brock Purdy's arm. And the Christian Roland Wallace interception, go back and watch that play. George Karlaftis is directly behind Brock Purdy. And it's easy to say, well, he wasn't touching him. How did he affect the throw if he wasn't touching Purdy? Well, here's the thing. We'll put you on the football field. We will let George Karlaftis, a man that large, George Karlaftis, I'm just saying, looks like he eats children. A very violent looking man. Let him get behind you. See how nervous you get. So football helmets, I think it's easy to forget. Do this. Do this with your hands. That's what you're looking at through a football helmet. If George Karlaftis is behind you, you're going to be very nervous very quick. That throw was absolutely influenced by George Karlaftis. So while he had 3 tackles and a sack, he forced, in my opinion, 3 interceptions. The next thing I'm going to talk about here is going to be controversial. No one's going to want to hear me say this. And I understand Isaiah Pacheco is very popular. Kareem Hunt is better than Isaiah Pacheco, even at this stage in Kareem Hunt's career. Kareem's vision and footwork at the line are elite. Absolutely elite. Go back and watch the first touchdown. I think it's the first touchdown he had. He takes the handoff. And one thing that I was always taught on the football field, never cross your legs. Not like you're sitting down, cross your legs. Here's your left leg, here's your right leg. Never do that. Never do that. You have no balance if you do that. You have no strength. You are not in the athletic position. You are at a deficit the minute your feet cross each other. Kareem Hunt took that handoff with a dead hip. Go watch that play. He takes the handoff, and his hip, he just kind of kicks his leg out in front of the other one in order to set up his block. He didn't even really have the ball in his gut yet, and he was already cutting off of, by the way, not the guy in front of him. The guy in front of him, I believe, was Travis Kelce. He was a lead blocking, pulling on that play. No, Kareem Hunt was looking at the offensive line, two guys ahead, and did the old Walter Payton dead leg. Absolutely wild. Kareem Hunt brings a new dimension to this offense because he's going to move forward. That's something this offense has lacked since Kareem Hunt left. There is no knocking Kareem Hunt backwards. There's no real locking Kareem Hunt up at the line of scrimmage. He's just too good. His vision is elite. His footwork at the line, absolutely elite. Isaiah Pacheco doesn't have those things. Carson Steele doesn't have those things. Samaje Perine doesn't have those things. None of the backs that we have seen here in Kansas City since Kareem Hunt left have had those things. Very elite, very rare things for a running back to have. Kareem Hunt has both of them. Now, Kareem Hunt's not breaking off a 70-yard touchdown run, I will tell you that. Kareem Hunt does not have the upside on speed that does Isaiah Pacheco. But here's what I'll ask. How many times have you seen Isaiah Pacheco hit full throttle? How many times has Isaiah Pacheco been able to get to full tilt? You've seen Kareem Hunt this season at full tilt. It's not very tilted. There's not many throttles. That much is true. But this Kansas City Chiefs offense with a guaranteed 4 yards, well, I think Patrick Mahomes and company will take it. If you look at this game, if you look at the game the Kansas City Chiefs just played against the 49ers, he did not have a massive performance. He did not go off for 130 yards like Juju Smith-Schuster did last week. No, he had 22 carries, 78 yards. That is not huge stuff. It's only a 3.5-yard average. And I would imagine that just from watching the game, if you were to summarize the game that you saw Kareem Hunt have, it would be okay. In a 3.5-yard average, that's exactly what you're talking about. That's okay. Well, 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7. Now it's 3rd and 3. 3.5 is a first down. That is what we are seeing from Kareem Hunt. That is what we are seeing from this offense. That is a dimension that Patrick Mahomes hasn't had on his side for a while. The number 3 talking point here, the Chiefs are 6-0. That's true. But they've won 12 in a row. And they haven't, so you know the hype. Every year, somebody gets to 10-0. Somebody gets to 11-0, right? Someone gets to 9-0. Most years, I guess I should say, that happens. Someone gets 9, 10, 11 wins in a row. 9-0, 10-0, 11-0. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are just 6-0. So it doesn't sound that impressive. But last year, didn't the Eagles get to 11-0, I think? Something like that. Something insane. The hype around that team was incredible. Oh, this is the greatest team we've ever seen. They were playing regular season games. The Kansas City Chiefs 12-0 run involves 4 playoff games, including a Super Bowl. The Chiefs' 12-0 run includes the Ravens how many times? Twice. The Bengals how many times? Twice. The Bengals have fallen off. It includes the 49ers in the Super Bowl and the 49ers the very next season. Sure, they're 3-4 now. Still the 49ers. If this were I contend, were this any other team, you would be hearing about this 12-0 run all over the place. Now, the Raiders have an opportunity to ruin it, and we're not scared of that, right? Because we're going to get duped again. We, as a fan base, overlook the Raiders a lot. And here's the ironic part. And here's the part that I know they will know in the Raiders locker room. When was the last time we saw the Kansas City Chiefs lose? Christmas Day to the Raiders. Isn't that wild? We're here. So the Raiders game is going to be on the 28th, right? 27th, 28th? The Raiders game will be the last weekend of October. The Chiefs have not lost since Christmas. What an absolutely wild statistic. What an absolutely wild number. Now, offensive MVP, I have to give this to Kareem Hunt. And that's because the game ball is going to someone who deserves it as well. The offensive MVP and the offense and defense have different problems for me with this section of the video this week. The offense, it seems there were a few players that I wanted to give the awards to. The defense played a whole lot better than the offense, but it didn't seem there was anyone I wanted to really single out. The offensive MVP, in my opinion, is Kareem Hunt, 22 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions, and 5 yards. He allows this offense to keep moving. He allows this offense to keep marching. I think his presence in the building is going to be extremely beneficial for the young Carson Steele and even Isaiah Pacheco, if Isaiah Pacheco is watching how it is that Kareem Hunt approaches the line of scrimmage. There are certain things like that I'm a firm believer you really do learn best firsthand. You learn it by watching this guy up close. The defensive game ball goes to Justin Reid, 9 tackles, 1 interception. I actually don't think Justin Reid had a particularly great game. Justin Reid was kind of, as long as I was watching football the right way here, as long as I was reading what I think I was reading, kind of abused by George Kittle in this game. Look, that happens. George Kittle is maybe the second best tight end in the NFL, but, whatever. as far as the game ball itself is concerned, I think you have to give it to Mecole Hardman. 2 carries for 39 yards and a touchdown, 1 reception for 17 yards, 1 punt return for 55 yards, 110 yards total for Mecole Hardman on a day when yards were hard fought. This game took the NFL right back to the 1990s, and I've got a talking point about this immediately after the Mahomes monologue if you want your mind blown. If you want to absolutely question the concept of time itself, I've got a talking point, a stinger at the end of this monologue. What is the Mahomes monologue this week? Patrick Mahomes is the author of many firsts. So many firsts that at this point in his career, he isn't hitting a lot of personal firsts. He's hitting more NFL-type firsts. But Sunday, he did set a personal first. The Kansas City Chiefs are shorthanded at wide receiver. They started the season in that way. They lost a wide receiver 1 before he ever took the field for an actual NFL snap for the Kansas City Chiefs. He bodied his own wide receiver 2 after throwing another mysterious interception. He lost his running back 1. He lost his wide receiver 3 for the game this past Sunday. He even lost wide receiver 4 for a few plays. And he won anyway. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs find themselves 6-0 for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. In 2018, he took the NFL by storm. He won the MVP that season, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. The Chiefs went 5-0. They lost their 6th game. In 2019, the Chiefs continued greatness and won a Super Bowl. But they started 4-0. They lost their 5th game. In 2020, they would return to the Super Bowl, allegedly, a game I don't remember, and start 4-0 again, losing their 5th game. In 2021, maybe the worst season of Mahomes' career, the Chiefs started 1-0. Can you believe they only went to overtime in the AFC Championship game that season? Then 2022 brought another Super Bowl, but they started 2-0. They lost the 3rd game of the season, and we all remember last season when the Chiefs dropped Week 1 to the Detroit Lions, a team that we had no idea was going to be as good as they were. And yes, obviously, football is a team sport. But we've seen many teams very similar to this in the past. Marty Ball, baby. Strong defense, struggle offense, throwing for 154 yards and a couple interceptions. But when nobody believes in the quarterback on those teams fall to the wayside pretty quickly most of the time. And by the playoffs, all of the time. Now, here's something that is going to blow your mind. I mentioned Marty Ball up here, and earlier in the video I talked about this game taking the NFL back to 1996. And we just played the 49ers, so it works perfectly. Do you remember Elvis Gerbach? Of course you do. I have seen the statistics for this channel. Most of you will remember Elvis Gerbach. So long ago, right? Elvis Gerbach, of course, before being a San Francisco 49er, was a quarterback at Michigan. Elvis Gerbach left Michigan after the 1992 season. 1992 season. Elvis Gerbach left Michigan 1992. He was drafted in the 8th round of the NFL draft, a round that no longer even exists. That would have been so long. I believe they had the draft in February back then. Would have been in 1993. So until January 1993, Elvis Gerbach was best known as a quarterback of Michigan. 1992, he was the quarterback at Michigan. Guys, Tom Brady's freshman year at Michigan was 1995. In your mind, are Elvis Gerbach and Tom Brady separated by 3 years? I guarantee you haven't had a substantial thought about Elvis Gerbach in 30 years. You've thought about him. You've snapped your fingers and thought, man, we really had it that season. I'm glad that we're getting past the hump now that we could get past with Elvis Gerbach. You haven't really cursed at Elvis Gerbach in 30 years. 96, 97, right? You cursed at Tom Brady yesterday. Shut up, Tom. I'm trying to watch the game, right? You cursed at Tom Brady on the field as early as just a couple years ago. What an absolutely wild thing to think about. Now, obviously, it's not related necessarily to this game. It's not related necessarily to the Kansas City Chiefs this season. But man, in the mythos of Kansas City, Elvis Gerbach and Tom Brady separated by just 3 seasons. That is wild. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. I've uploaded a video every day for 600 plus days now, and I hope to have you back for the next one.